She reserved the stage after dark, and I took my seat in the booth. There's a trick to making people look more beautiful than they feel. 2 degrees of warmth in the front wash, a touch of rose gel on the side light, and a soft special from above to teach the cheekbones a better memory. I've lit confessions, proposals, and 3 divorces on our stage, 1 scripted, 2 spontaneous. I tell actors their best lines with bulbs and angles. They call me Luke because lighting designer sounds like a job and lighthouse keeper would be embarrassing. My wife, Serena, says I romance rooms for a living. She's in PR for the City Arts Council, a woman who can get a donor to sign a check by arranging chairs to flatter his generosity. We met under work lights at a black box theater where a fundraiser was sinking into chaos. I aimed a Fresnel at the board president and made his forehead stop shining. She leaned on the tech table and said, "You're saving my life." And her laugh reminded me of the noise Fresnels make when they cool, soft, relieved, a little secret. At home, we choreographed a version of intimacy that wouldn't offend a censor. We kept our kitchen dim on purpose. I'd put a pale pool of light over the sink so when Serena washed cherries after midnight, the water turned to jewelry on her wrists. She'd slip behind me and fit her chin in the shallow between my neck and shoulder, an angle I reserved for her. Her palm would settle on my hip, fingers drumming in time with the kettle. 3 beats that meant I'm here, a fourth that meant I want more, but say it with your hands. We moved like people who knew where the furniture was even in the dark. If there's an erotica YouTube would allow, it's the way she once buttoned my shirt, keeping 2 buttons undone and looking pleased with her work. The way I pressed her back against the hallway wall with nothing but my breath, the smile in her throat. The way an old band t-shirt climbed her legs when she reached for a glass, and I admired without touching because wanting is part of the art. We lived on the edge of explicit without ever falling off. The first wrong cue came as a key. We share a dish by the door, the kind couples buy when they believe porcelain can organize a life. Serena dropped a key into it I didn't recognize. Hotel Silver, anonymous, stamped with a number that pretended to be a room. She said, "New co-working loft on Mercer. The council's letting us stage pop-up salons." The word stage tried to be my friend and failed. The second cue came as a color. Serena bought a lipstick called Curtain Call. It wasn't her red. It was the kind ingenues wear on opening night when they want the second row to cry. It looked good enough to be dangerous. She started wearing more silk and fewer sweaters. Her texts included photos of glassware catching blue light I would have sworn I hung. One Tuesday, our theater received a reservation request for a private rehearsal. I don't police those. The company rents out the black box after hours for dancers, bands, marriage proposals, and Tinder's high-budget mistakes. The form came in under S. Hale, Serena's maiden name, and asked for the door to be left open, work lights at 30%, sound system off. The reason line said, "Coaching session with guest director." The guest director listed was Adrian Vale, a photographer turned theater darling who had recently shot a city campaign for the Arts Council. His portraits made brick walls look flirtatious. I'm not an idiot, but I am a professional. I put the reservation on the calendar and watched myself not call my wife. At 9 that night, when our crew had gone home and the stage smelled like dust and borrowed applause, I took my place in the booth anyway, lights off, monitors dim. I told myself I was there to check a whispering dimmer rack. The black box is honest at rest. No costumes, no set, only the ghost light. A single bulb on a stand we leave on stage so the theater never forgets it is a place built for seeing. I turned it off and faded up a low, bare work light instead. The door downstairs opened with the hesitation of a stranger's hand on a familiar knob. Her footsteps first. I could draw her walk from memory. Silk makes a sound shoes can't. It's the sound of air voting for someone. She came in with a scarf that tried to be discreet and failed the moment she touched it. The man behind her had the posture of someone who spends time in front of lenses and has never tripped on a cable. "Light's good?" he asked, voice like a new suit. "Perfect," Serena said, and the word wasn't about bulbs. They did not do anything a platform would ban. I will grant them that mercy. They stood center and looked at each other like conspirators, like people who have found a corner of the world that will allow them 10 seconds more than is reasonable. He adjusted the fall of her hair. She lifted her chin in a way I'd seen in our bathroom when she drew a line at her eye. He touched her shoulder, respectful, like a stage direction. She stepped closer, the way you do when a cue lands clean. He didn't kiss her lips. He kissed that place where jaw becomes ear, the hinge actors warm up before a love scene. She closed her eyes and did the small inhale I knew better than my own handwriting. I'm not a saint. My hand found the fader for the top light and brought it up a hair, instinctively protecting skin from shadows that would make them older than the night asked. I was lighting my wife for another man because muscle memory betrayed me. When the air grew too intimate for my ribs, I faded up the work lights to full. They flinched, then separated like a curtain reluctantly taking its bow. "Sorry," I said into the monitor like a sound check, making myself part of the building. "Housekeeping. Don't mind me." Serena looked toward the booth as if she could feel heat moving. Her chin tilted when she's about to pitch. "Luke." I brought the lights down to something civilized. "The dimmer rack been fussing," I lied with crisp courtesy. "Carry on." No one carried on. He cleared his throat with the humility of a man who sees a script and recognizes the wrong role. He said my name as if it were a password he regretted remembering. She threaded her fingers together until the knuckles whitened, a tell I'd seen under a table when donors asked for magic. "Private rehearsals 20 minutes," I said. "You've got 15 left." They left in 2. I sat in the dark with the smell of warm dust and Serena's perfume, something with pear I hadn't poured, thinning in the air. I could have packed my life into the case under the console and vanished into a tech job in another city. Instead, I did what lighting people do when a scene turns strange. I built the next cue. Our theater had a gala coming up, silent auction, rescue champagne, speeches timed to keep people from noticing their shoes hurting. I was in charge of making it look like generosity. I called the chair and suggested in my most reliable voice a new element, a truth stage, a small platform at the back of the lobby where guests could try a scene under professional light, a way to let patrons feel what performers feel. 10 seconds in the special, one honest line, I said. We make a reel of them afterwards. I'll call it the confession booth. She loved the idea. Of course she did. People love curated honesty. I built it with the care I save for opening nights. A single stool, a soft pool of front light warm enough to forgive, cool enough to clarify, and a hush of backlight to draw a line on a spine. I tuned the light to the exact temperature Serena finds flattering. It would show lies a way to become smaller. I invited Adrian as part of the creative team. Our chair liked attractive men nearby. Serena had to be there. Her job involved tuning other people's reputations. The lobby filled with donors dressed like champagne tastes. I stood beside the little platform, microphone in hand, welcoming people to try their line, why theater matters to me, or what art saved me from, or the occasional brave who I'm pretending to be tonight. I didn't plan humiliation. I planned a mirror. At 8:30, Serena arrived in a black dress with an off-the-shoulder dip that made the light theater my accomplice without my asking. Her hair was up. She avoided the little stage without looking like she was avoiding it, which is a professional skill. Adrian drifted 3 minutes later, charming in a way that annoyed the air. They didn't stand together. They stood near enough to prove they'd practiced. I invited a councilwoman up first. She told a good story about school plays and wrong neighborhoods. A retired actor made a joke about applause being a drug with better side effects than most. People offered their warmth, and the light returned it. Then I said, casual as water, "We'll close this set with a woman who knows how to set the scene for this city better than anyone. Serena Hale, would you give us 10 seconds?" If she'd said no, I would have smiled and moved on. She said yes, because Serena does not let rooms push her without pushing back, and because the title in the program beside her name would not forgive refusal. She sat on the stool and looked at me, not into the darkness where the audience was pretending to be benevolent. I lifted the light a fraction, bringing out the hollow at her collarbone. She folded her hands. There was a hush the lobby hadn't agreed to and made anyway. 10 seconds, I said, voice soft. One honest line. She breathed once with her mouth open, a girl tasting snow. Then, I reserved a stage after dark because I wanted to feel like I was still the kind of woman who could be cast. No one in the lobby knew what that meant but us. Adrian's face lost its brand. I didn't flinch. I brought the light a hair warmer, as if I could coach Mercy into the night. "I love my husband," she said. Her eyes found mine like magnets that had been asleep. "I've been using that love like a scrim, letting light through it to make other scenes look softer. That's not fair to the scrim or the scene." She could sell weather to the sky, but she wasn't selling now. Her voice didn't have the varnish she uses when donors need to feel clever. It had the roughness of backstage hallway paint. The room did not clap. It breathed. I nodded to the board chair to start the next round of speeches. I helped Serena off the stool without touching her and put the microphone on the stand the way a person closes a book they never owned. We didn't talk at the gala. We left separately because sometimes grace looks like distance. At home, she sat at our kitchen table under the small light I always told the truth under. She'd taken off her makeup. Her mouth looked younger without armor. She turned her ring with a thumb and said, "What do you want me to say?" "Not a pitch," I said. "Not a campaign. I want the thing that hurts when you don't say it." She looked at our key dish. The extra one was gone. I didn't ask when. "I liked being someone a light found from the dark," she said. "I liked not knowing the cue and taking it anyway." "Did you?" The word kiss felt like a prop. "Twice," she said. "Once on a stage that wasn't ours. Once because I wanted to make the first one less significant or more. It wasn't him, Luke. It was the mirror. I wanted to see how I looked when the room wasn't arranged for me." I thought of my hand raising the fader for her skin even when my ribs were learning how to creak. "I lit you," I said. "That's my sin." She smiled without happiness. "You've been lighting me for years. I forgot to ask who taught you how." We made rules like people patch a roof in the rain. If you want 10 seconds under a light that forgives nothing, ask me for them at home. If you need a room that claps when you walk in, we'll invite friends and pretend it's for charity. If you can't tell me what you're about to do before you do it, you can't do it and keep my name. No open marriage masquerading as professional development. No lockdown either. Just knock. Let me choose to open the door. She nodded. She untied the silk scarf from her neck like you remove a stage dressing from a set you've decided to repaint. She crossed to me and didn't kiss me. She pressed her forehead to mine, and the warmth where our noses almost touched felt like a little private hearth. YouTube would allow this part and miss the point. We went to bed and slept like people who had confessed without seeking absolution. In the morning, I took my coffee to the theater and set a single special on the ghost light, just to see how it felt to be lit without performance. It felt like a possibility. Adrian sent an email later. Apologies for the unprofessional moment in your space. It won't happen again. He CC'd no one. I forwarded it to a folder labeled cues that didn't fire and closed it with the satisfaction of a switch returning to its honest position. Serena came by the theater with sandwiches and a face that looked like herself. She sat on the edge of the stage and swung her legs over the orchestra pit like a kid. I walked out of the booth and stood below her, looking up. "Light me," she said softly. I brought up the special I keep for auditions, the one that makes people brave because it has no patience for pretense. She stayed in it. I stayed with her. We didn't promise anything foolish. We practiced telling the truth until it sounded less like an opening night and more like a Tuesday. I still run the booth. I still warm gels between my fingers and trust my eyes more than scripts. Sometimes, late, I stand in the dark and turn on the ghost light just to remind myself the stage belongs to no one and everyone. And when Serena drops her keys in the dish now, they are all ours. When she wants a cue, she knocks on the doorframe of our kitchen and says, with a grin that remembers, "Places." I answer, "Places," and bring up the light 2 degrees, warm enough to forgive, cool enough to tell the truth.